Call this meeting of the Grafton Planning Board to order. This is the October 26th, 2020 meeting.
You muted yourself, Bob. I heard the date, that's all. Then you cut out and it's showing your microphone's muted.
How did I manage that? Anyway, the Monday, October 26th, 2020 meeting of the Grafton Planning Board. We're doing this participation because of COVID-19. We'll start with public input. If there's any member of the public here who has something that we're not taking up on the agenda, this would be the time. I think you want to use Q&A, Chris, to indicate you have something to say.
Yep, so there's the Q&A feature, which can be used. There's also the chat feature, which I'll be monitoring, as well as the raise hand feature. Currently, we have 2 attendees in the meeting. So.
Okay. That said, there doesn't seem to be any public input. No action items. True? 2021 Planning Board meeting dates.
Yep, so we're getting to the point we usually update for or set the schedule for the 2021 Planning Board meeting dates. I believe that usually takes place beginning in November or end of October with this board. I did want to kind of have a little bit of part of the conversation. I know there has been some discussion of other boards about potentially moving towards monthly meetings rather than bi-monthly. And I didn't know if the board had any kind of appetite one way or the other in terms of continuing with the bi-monthly meetings or moving towards a monthly meeting model, but I just wanted to have that discussion with the members.
Our meetings were long enough when we had 2 of them, I think. There's also a few considerations like A&R timing. Anybody else?
I think I'd have to say that our bi-monthly meetings seem to have been at approximately the correct pace for the most part. You know, I don't feel like we've been meeting too often. I do kind of, you know, I'd want to reinforce Bob's notion that our twice a month meetings have generally been running substantially, in most cases, long enough as is. And if we went to a meeting once a month, we would definitely be, I think we'd be pretty reliably looking at some longer meetings, unless, of course, the pace of activity kind of suddenly and slows down and stays low. And you know, if the pace of activity were lower, but I mean, you know, I've been on the board for not 10 years now. Bob's been on for a lot longer than that. And the pace of activity has been fairly consistent.
Sorry.
If I may add to that,
Sure.
Bob and Dave definitely have way more experience. My personal preference is if we can have more frequent ones and shorter duration, weekly if possible, but lesser duration in the day. That would, I think that to me would make it more effective. But I think the current pace that we have, once in 2 weeks, that itself seems to solve for the need right now.
Okay. Anybody else?
What everybody just said, but I would entertain if staff felt that once a month would be better on their workload than twice a month. I'd be interested in hearing that, but otherwise, I still kind of feel that twice a month is a good pace for our general durations, public participation for meeting, for public hearings, so they don't have to wait till midnight for the thing they care about, things like that. So
We can always, and on rare occasions, we do cancel a meeting because there isn't anything. And that's the other side of it. You have the dates available. What's that number?
Yep. So we'll submit.
Oh. Justin just reminded me, we need to have a roll call. I'm here. Linda.
Here.
Dave. Babu.
Here,
Here,
Justin.
here,
And whoever else.
Chris, town planner, I'm here, and then Natalia Allward.
Right.
I'm
but
here.
Others, because I think we're supposed to know everybody who's not here, aren't we?
My understanding is it's just the board members and the and staff, but if you want, I can go through the names of the other panelists on tonight.
Just be sure we know who they are when we get there. Okay, now we were talking about the schedule. We're agreed on this, on keeping the schedule the way it is for now.
I think because there are things that come in front of us that have deadlines anyway, they periods of time where we have to have a certain number of meetings and they have to get stuff filed and all. And I don't think we should cut down as much as it's tempting. Other boards don't have that kind of deadlines in front of them. It really isn't quite the same thing. So I'm in favor of leaving it alone for the time being. And it's true, if we had nothing on the agenda, we had one item, we might bump it. But other than that, we've been so long since I've seen a short agenda.
Well, we've had one or two.
One or two,
it has been known to happen.
I know.
Yeah,
And it
no.
also has been
Well,
I
thank
think
you.
when I as vice chair had to run a meeting in the last year, we had one that went, I don't know, less than an hour. Didn't have much on the agenda.
So we'll submit for the November 9th meeting a list of dates in accordance with the regular bi-monthly schedule. But at least since we're updating, I thought it might be a good time just to review that. So thank you for the input.
Yeah. I'm not sure who, which boards are doing that. All I know is the Board of Selectmen seems to be meeting about, or the Select Board seems to be meeting about every 2 or 3 days lately.
Yes,
Notices for them. Okay.
they've been unusually busy of late.
Well, yeah. Master plan update.
Yeah, so I just briefly wanted to touch on this. I'm still finalizing the capital plan request. We have the submission forms, which will be going to the capital plan committee. And obviously our master plan is quite dusty at this point in time. It's seen a lot of use and due for a refresh. After reviewing some options and other communities that have recently updated, looking at the costs of what they did, and in talking with Carter Terenzini, the interim town administrator, I think the best way to move forward with this is we looked at a three-phased approach, which actually Harvard used recently. And obviously we'll tweak that to Grafton's context, but looking at a first phase, which would be just primarily data collection. And then the next fiscal year would be a second phase, which would be the public engagement and actually collecting the remainder of the data, using the data that we have for public presentations and workshops. And then a third phase to actually take all of that input and all that information and finalize the document. What that does is that breaks up, it's a bit longer of a time period of a master plan update spanning 3 fiscal years. But what that does is the impact, obviously these plans don't come cheap. And so the impact of the financing is spread out over those 3 years, and it's not as big of a financial lift that way. So that's one of the ways that we're kind of shaping our request for the capital plan committee. So hopefully I'll have that finalized this week. So
Progress,
Are
or as a request,
on what your desire is as the planner, Chris, is this for FY22's fiscal year?
yeah, so it'll begin FY22 would be the request for phase 1. I believe as it's currently drafted, we're looking at 40,000. That's going to be the larger amount. Then in the phase 2, which will be fiscal year 23, we're doing another 40,000 for the public engagement. Obviously, anything from the first fiscal year, if left over, I'm not sure if there will be much, but that can roll in. And then likewise, rolling into the third period of 20,000 for the finalization of the plan, because we'll really have the meat of the project at that point. And that's just kind of putting the bow on it, if you will. For a total of $100,000 is the anticipated cost. Looking at other communities, many of the recent plans have gone between 75,000 to 150,000. Most of them closer to the 150,000 range. So we find that the request for the 100,000 will hopefully put us in a good position to develop a really good product at a cost-effective rate.
would you be thinking of contracting separately for the phases? Maybe you have to.
I believe all 3 phases would be bid out separately. I think there would be some potential benefit to keeping the same consultant on each of them, but I don't think that we would be held to that if we received a bid that was seemed to be more beneficial.
And you'd be doing the 3 bids, one in each year, not everything at the beginning.
I believe the 3 bids would be separate each year. We would certainly put the timeline into the bid so that a consultant would know that it's a 3-phase project and be obviously transparent about that. But I think the bids, because they would be funded separately, it would be separated per fiscal year.
Okay. Anybody else on that?
Well, this has been something we've been wanting to try to get done for a long time. And if we can get this, if we can secure this capital funding, and this strikes me as being a reasonable way to go about it, just in terms of the total cost of the project versus the relatively limited availability of funds. We are going to be competing with a whole lot of other capital projects.
There'll be an interesting question about whether what we'll be aiming towards just planning board adoption or whether we'll also be trying to factor in getting agreement from select town meeting. Wanted to do that. We wanted to get town meeting the last time, but things, let's say, didn't work out. Okay, middle development overlay district, literature review and so on. Anything on that?
Yeah, so previously the planning board had approved the use of the 14 remaining LTA hours for redevelopment. CMRPC is quite busy, as are we in our department, so I have not been able to meet with them, but I will continue to follow up and hopefully be able to get some progress on this.
Anybody on any of that? Subdivision rules and regulations update.
Well, if nobody else has anything on that, I do have some small bit of information to report. I've begun the work of actually editing the document. Started out with Jeff Walsh's, the couple of memos that he forwarded to us regarding his thoughts on revisions relative to stormwater regulations and a few other items. So I've been working on getting those incorporated into the document, along with a while back we looked at the comparison of traffic study regulations in the subdivision rules as compared with the same regulations that are in the zoning bylaw. We had come up with some edits there to make those consistent. I'm factoring those in, and I've gone through and taken care of a bunch of typos I had found. Some of what Jeff Walsh recommended is going to require a little bit of additional discussion. Some of his questions were, well, what does DPW think about certain aspects, things like curbs, and there was two or three items, some drainage related items. So I'll be putting together a set of questions for discussion with DPW, and maybe also with Jeff for some additional clarification from Jeff as to what he was thinking. So this is now, I've really finally begun to dig into this. This is, I'm trying to take care of all the relatively minor stuff. We have some major subjects to consider, but there's just a whole pile of little things, terminology and various other things that I'd like to try to get done, and then sort of nail down then what are the more significant topics that we will need to discuss further. Most of the ones that we've discussed, some or we're well aware of, but we'll try to get into a position where we can really focus on some of those and have all the other smaller stuff out of the way. So right now it's a work in progress. Perhaps we'll have a draft of at least a collection of something that would be suitable for the rest of the board to review and comment on, since I have no claim to being the one and only person who can see everything that needs to be done here. But until we all have something in front of us, it's a little bit hard to focus your mind on it. So hopefully by the next meeting, I'll have at least something that's far enough along that it would be worthwhile to get everybody else to review and comment on it.
Good. It occurs to me that we might divide and conquer, do the easy stuff, get the easy stuff together and get it done, so that we don't put off. If this keeps happening, something comes along and then you made some progress, but falls off because you're waiting for something.
Yep, that's kind of at the back of my mind too. That we may have something, for a few topics that we really need to work on at greater length. But if we can get a lot of other stuff out of the way, so that we kind of clear the decks, so that we're not trying to think of 6 different things all at once. So I do kind of go along with that idea, Bob.
Yeah. Everybody okay with that? No, without objection. Subdivision rules and regulations governing stormwater management. I think that's what, when I tried to follow a link on the website, I got something like a page not found, didn't I? In any case, is there anything?
Um,
Yeah, one of those links seems to be broken, but it was a reference to Jeff Walsh had given us 2 PDFs. That's what those 2 links are, and that's what I've been working off of.
So anything on that at this point? Hearing nothing. Bills, do we have any bills? No bills. And minutes have to wait for the next time, right? No,
Yeah, I sent you that email because I saw some formatting errors and some typos, so I decided not to put them on. I didn't have time to review them again. So they'll be on those 3 sets will be on next meeting.
next meeting. Okay. Staff report.
So I do have a couple things tonight. I did just want to point out that the RFP for 17 and 27 Upton, that's the DPW barn and woodshed, or wood barn rather. We did extend, after multiple requests were received from prospective applicants, we did extend the RFP to January 15th, 2020. Hopefully that will allow us to generate some more quality responses. We're also asking that in addition, what wasn't asked in the original RFP was the tax impacts be included, both positives and negatives, for the consideration of the RFP committee. So that was extended, and we did draft the timeline to make sure that we would still be meeting town meeting for our timeline of disposing of the property. So
2021.
yes,
Yeah, you said 20, not 21.
sorry, 2021. Yes.
Any other staff report?
I just have a quick question on that, if I may.
Mhm.
Do we have an occupancy for the new DPW site yet?
Yeah. Yes, the occupancy, I believe, was issued last week. I'm not positive, but I know it was issued. I don't remember if it was last week or.
I think I heard that it was issued a week before last.
Yeah, we did. We had a meeting, a staff meeting, and we went over the punch list items. There were a few that conservation had. They had met all the planning board decision conditions. And so they were all set to go at that point.
You know, the sight line is still, we did our best with it, but at the driveway, the main driveway, looking towards the center of town, we were right that it's tight. And no other staff report?
Nope. That's it.
Okay, any correspondence?
I did notice the one from the Baker administration, but our board is already meeting all that. That he was suggesting was basically don't stop holding meetings and regard to housing and stuff.
I'm gonna send that to the cable committee. Let's see. Reports from planning board representatives on town committees and CMRPC. Anything new? Anybody wants to report? How about Dave?
Yeah. So the town administrators screening committee, we met with the consultants and kind of reviewed the feedback we got from the public, which our consultant said that was some of the most extensive public feedback they've gotten, or public input they've gotten in recent times from all the communities they've worked with. So they were pleased with what we got, and most of our input came through the Google Forms that we all sent out. And the input from the public, well, all things considered, was pretty helpful, and I think it largely reinforced what we in the committee had sort of believed and what the select board had come up with initially. The consultants have drafted a position statement, sort of a this is what we want, this is what Grafton is, and this is what we're looking for. That has gone out, or probably will be going out early this week. I don't know if it's actually gone out yet, but at this point, it's basically it's all in the hands of the consultants to advertise for the position, to receive resumes. The plan currently calls for the screening committee to review the resumes toward the end of November. I think tentatively we're looking at at Thanksgiving week, Monday or Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, or maybe it was Tuesday and Wednesday. I don't remember. We haven't set a time yet, but so we're kind of so far progressing on schedule. We're hoping, the consultants did indicate that they've already had a few inquiries from people who are interested in being Grafton's town administrator. So that is hopeful. And hopefully we will end up with a good crop of candidates, and the screening committee will have a difficult time narrowing it down to 5 well-qualified candidates. So we shall see. So far, so good.
I see Vikram has joined us. Roll call. Unmute and tell us that you're here.
I'm here. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So
One other report from planning board representative on committee is the open space and recreation plan, which we have, which is still not finalized. It's been given a conditional approval from the state, as I believe I reported previously. Just last week, staff and I and the CMRPC staff, who are doing a lot of the work on it for us, got together for a status meeting, and we're making progress towards satisfying the state's punch list of things that we still need to do.
okay. Let's see. All right. 10 seconds. We reached 7:30. And I'll note for anybody who didn't catch it, item 6E, the 61 Maple Avenue application was it has asked for continuation to
It was never scheduled. It wasn't scheduled.
No, yeah, don't have the right note here. It wasn't scheduled actually for tonight. It just slipped onto the agenda inadvertently. So we won't be touching on that one at all tonight. If there's anybody who wants to hang around, would prefer not to hang around until they find out later. On item E, the determination of completeness for High Point, we've received a request to continue that hearing until November 9th. And we can deal that now so that people don't have to hang around. We have the written, apparently, I'm not sure whether it's saw it.
Yeah, we did. We did receive both email and written request for continuance.
Until our next meeting. We have a motion on that one?
I move we vote to accept the request for continuance and grant the request for continuance to the November 9th meeting.
Second.
Yeah,
At 7:30?
at 7:30.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Dave,
Aye.
Justin,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Abu,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Motion carries. That brings us to 11 Wheeler Road.
All right.
This is new.
It is. I have the notice in front of me, Mr. Chair. The planning board will hold a public hearing on Monday, October 26, 2020, commencing at 7:30 p.m. to consider the application for a definitive plan approval of a 6-lot residential definitive subdivision, Stillwater Estates, on property located at 11 Wheeler Road, as shown as Grafton Assessor's Map 41, Lot 1. Said property is located in a low-density residential R40 zone. The applicant owner is Stanley W. and Lisa A. McGriff. Copies of the application and plan are available for public inspection on the Town of Grafton website at www.grafton-ma.gov on the Planning Department Development Projects webpage. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March stay-at-home advisory, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. Please see www.grafton-ma.gov/planning board for more information.
Okay, Chris,
I'm just pulling up the plans now. Yep, so this is for a 6-lot subdivision. I see the applicant, Mr. McGriff, is here. I don't believe, let me just look. It's hard when I'm screen sharing too. But if the applicant wants to kind of discuss the project and give his presentation.
Hi, Kristen Labrise here from Andrews Survey and Engineering representing the client. And also, if you can add Eli as a presenter, he's listed in Jude Govin. They're listed as participants, but not presenters.
Sorry, let me do.
Eli Lino.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hi, this is Eli Lano from Mayor Antonellis, Jackowitz, and Haranis. I don't seem to have video at the moment, but you can all hear me?
yes, I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, we're joined tonight by Stanley and Lisa McGriff, who are the property owners here. And obviously Kristen just introduced herself. So I think as this is a planning board meeting, the bulk of this will be Kristen going over the plan set. But just as a brief introduction to this, we're presenting a flexible development plan that, as you might recall from back when we could go to meetings together, we presented in front of you a preliminary subdivision, which was largely the same plan set here. We've met all of the zoning requirements of section 5.3 with regard to a flexible development plan, and also have been in significant contact with Rob Aberg and the Grafton Land Trust. I actually spoke with him briefly today. I know that previously the board had been weighing the calculus of a waiver for the street location with regard to the streets abutting. So Wheeler is abutting Worcester Road, and then there's the other streets up the street on Wheeler. And we are within that 600 to 1,200 feet, so would need a waiver for that. But the board was weighing the calculus of granting that waiver against significant public benefit that the project could provide. And part of the thing we've been working on is that our largest abutting neighbor here is the Grafton Land Trust. So we were discussing with Rob what sort of things that trail network could use that we could provide in addition to the significant border of our project as is required by the bylaws. And one thing we discussed previously, there had been talk of a boardwalk, but in discussing this with Rob, he thought that would be something that would end up requiring significant upkeep, be a little less of a natural feel, and end up probably costing the land trust time and effort to maintain over the decades we expect people to keep using the things we improve here. So we today had been discussing, and it shows on our plan on page 9, using a gravel base with a crushed stone over the top for a more natural feel that would also be pervious, not be a raised thing that brings risks of ankle turning when people are walking with leaves out there, that kind of stuff. So I thought it was a good solution for an improvement to the public good of the land trust land, while also relatively in the vicinity of the pathway that actually does come over the corner of the McGriff's land here. So that's something I'm sure we'll discuss at length, but I'd like to turn it over to Kristen and let her go over the basis of the plan set for the McGriffs here.
Hi, Kristen Labrie from Andrews Survey and Engineering. So what we have here, which we've gone through with the preliminary plan submission and the special permit, is a 6-lot subdivision on Stillwater Estates. The 6 new houses you can see on this plan here, as well as the improvement to the pathway on the land trust property to the north. The development is a flexible development, so it has that 50-foot buffer from any abutting property with a different land use. And on the south, there is that extra 30 feet of abutting property that remains with the McGriff property, that existing house. So our stormwater is processed through catch basins and put into a stormwater detention infiltration basin to the north, which if you actually scroll up a sheet, Chris, to grading, maybe 2 sheets. Scared me.
Sorry.
One more sheet, I believe. Yeah, so you can see the infiltration basin to the north, as well as the utilities running down Stillwater Lane. We have water and sewer that would both be connected to Wheeler Road, as well as proposed lighting and a sidewalk on the north side of Stillwater Lane.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure whether you should be saying north. No, north is.
Oh, I'm sorry, the north side of the plan, sorry. So it is the east side of the property, but for everyone looking at the plan, the top side of Stillwater Lane.
North arrow should point out.
The north arrow is pointing to the true north, so it is actually the east side of Stillwater Lane. And then the improvements to the trail, as Eli spoke of before, is approximately 400 feet, and that would be the crushed stone and widening of that, which I know the board asked for in the previous submission. If the board has any more specific questions for the plan, I know they've seen this generally before. I am happy to answer them.
I haven't had a chance to, really hard to read these things on the computer screen. Did you see that there was a comment just very, very recently posted about the stormwater arrangements on Wheeler Road, I think, right?
Yes, I did. Chris, if you can scroll down to the plan and profile sheet for me. Yeah, that one, perfect. So if you can see on the profile sheet, coming from Wheeler Road, we're actually going downhill into our property. So we would add a hump at the beginning at Wheeler Road, so that way we would keep the stormwater in line, keep the gutter line for Wheeler Road, so no stormwater would enter our property and no stormwater would exit our property from the intersection. So we don't necessarily need a catch basin to be added. We just need to modify the grading so that way the stormwater in Wheeler Road stays in Wheeler Road and what's in Stillwater Lane stays in Stillwater Lane.
You know, Chris would probably need to, you know, connect back on the
Yes.
comment. Okay.
So on the things that were covered in the preliminary plan, what has changed since then? If you can give a high level of like specifics, but I'm not really concerned with things that were added in terms of just detail that were not required in the preliminary for this question. It's just the what has changed. That
So what's changed is the stormwater basin was fully designed. Before it was an estimated size. There was no catch basins, things like that. So we added that detail again. But so that modified the grading and modified the land swap. But again, it's an equal land swap. Also, that was added that wasn't on the preliminary plan was lighting. In the preliminary plan, we asked for a waiver. We removed that waiver and we put the proposed lighting on.
Okay.
House placement slightly moved in areas, and some property lines changed to get areas and frontage and things of that nature, but there are no major redesigns from the preliminary to here.
Okay.
400 feet.
Would I be correct in assuming that Gray's Engineering has been given these for review or will be?
Yeah, I believe they have been submitted, but we have not yet received response from Graves.
I believe I noticed that this is going to go before the Conservation Commission.
Yes. We have not submitted to them, as we like to go through the planning board and make sure that there's no major changes before we go through conservation.
Yep, and we like to make sure that before we finish our process that it's been through conservation so that we don't have to turn around and do more. It's coordinating between the two boards is always a little tricky, but as much as possible, we want to go through things in parallel so that.
So there are no structures. There are no structures within conservation jurisdiction. There is some minor clearing in the stormwater basin. That's what's within their jurisdiction. The path would be filed as a separate NOI, as the Grafton Land Trust being the applicant for that. So that would be separate from this application. We could certainly submit in the time frame that planning board is happening. We just haven't submitted yet.
I think that one of the things is if we get done before they're done, you might have to come back and have another hearing process.
The only thing that would
if you
change
need.
possibly is the stormwater, which we could easily submit back to planning board as a minor modification or just a courtesy of new plans, as they'd both be reviewed by Graves.
But Mr. Chairman, we do understand your goal of efficiency here, and we'll do everything we can to make sure we have the two running parallel.
Yeah, but as you point out, Kristen, is with respect to the stormwater in particular, that basically is being, Graves would be reviewing that on behalf of both boards.
Yes.
So I wouldn't anticipate a problem. We just want to make sure that, we'll move along, I think, as fast as we can, but we don't want to get ahead of ourselves either. Let's make sure that both boards are in coordination to the extent necessary.
Yes, of course.
Well, I
ahead.
have a question.
Yes.
Chris, can we have Rob weigh in on why was the preference for the crushed stone versus the boardwalk, just to refresh our memory?
So I wasn't part of that discussion on the preference between the crushed stone, the boardwalk. I'm not sure.
Is Rob on tonight? I know.
Yes, he is.
Yeah,
When I
can,
spoke to him this afternoon, he said he would be attending, so he might be, we can go right from the
Yeah, like-
horse's mouth.
He is connected. He commented saying he's a panelist. That if he could get promoted.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's my, do you want my video? I have a video. Where'd it go?
Yeah, I can't start my video either, Rob. I don't know what's going
Okay,
on.
well, you don't get, I'm happy not to share video. Supermodel Rob. Yeah, so last time we had talked a bit about a boardwalk or something else, and we looked at it, and having a 400-foot long boardwalk would be like buying, you know, if you've ever had your deck refinished behind your house for $15,000, that's a 12-foot by 12-foot deck, that a 400-foot boardwalk could cost us several $100,000, which exceeds our annual operating permit by about, or annual operating budget by about 1,000%. So it would be, the maintenance every 10 to 15 years might be our entire annual operating budget. So we couldn't afford to redo a boardwalk. And so we're just concerned about the maintenance of that, and, you know, rotting wood and slipperiness in the winter or anything like that. So we don't have a lot of experience with it. And to be on the safe side of our budget, we were thinking something lower maintenance like crushed stone might be useful. But in the meantime, I can, since the last meeting, I'll add a URL to Disabilities Commission. A complaint has been filed with the land trust that our trails are not ADA accessible. And so waiting the outcome of forest hiking becoming under the jurisdiction of ADA, I just want everybody to know that we're very concerned that anything we do on our trails would have to be ADA compliant, and anything up from the edge of the road up to that facility would also have to be made ADA compliant. And that's another thing that's a very expensive undertaking. And so I just want that to be recorded here, that as much as I love the new plan and the new design, I don't think gravel is ADA compliant now based on the complaint that was lodged at the Disability Commission last month. I put the I put it in the Q&A. You want it in the chat instead? Here.
Rob, just to interrupt, it isn't gravel. It's a crushed stone dust.
Well, okay. Is it an ADA compliant material, I guess, is the
So when doing research for this, it's ideal for horses to walk on, vehicles to drive on, people to walk on. So it is. I don't want to say it's ADA approved,
yeah,
but it is one of the better ADA accessible ones because it's compacted and flat.
Yeah, and it looks wonderful. I saw it on the plan, and I'm very happy. But then once we got hit with this Disability Commission thing, it's an extra concern that we didn't have in our previous discussion. So I just wanted that to be laid in there, that we're, because we didn't want to have bare ground, because the DEP complaint after the cars crashed last December was that, oh, you guys didn't hear about that either. So the cars crashed into the river, took out the land trust sign, took out the berm protecting the intersection water from going into the river. So a 3-foot gully opened up over the winter, and we were getting hit with something from DEP for silting the river. So the orders there, Leah worked with them, and DPW put in 6-inch riprap, and we couldn't have any bare dirt. So as long as it meets DEP requirements within the 100-foot and the ADA requirements and up to that, so they're saying if you have a facility farther back, that from the road up to that, it also has to be made ADA compliant. So we don't know the outcome of that complaint. It's just a complaint from a person, and it's not the state Architectural Access Board coming to any decision yet. But you know, that's out there and it has a lot of teeth. So you know, 521 CMR has a lot of teeth, and we're, you know, approaching that very cautiously.
So Rob,
We don't want to sign up for something that's going to bite us.
just to ask it on my end, do you have any idea when you might hear a resolution to the ADA, concern?
Well, it was lodged in May and it's October, so quick doesn't seem like a word. So I guess I don't. Sorry.
No worries. Just figured I'd ask.
For my sleep, I would love to know what the outcome is, because having somebody say you got to pave all your trails hanging over your head is, you know, kind of a stressful thing.
Obviously if that's in litigation, is town council reviewing that?
It's not litigation, it's just a complaint, and
Just a
then it's the Architectural Access Board. So I wouldn't use the word litigation to describe that.
Okay, sorry.
So that's a complaint against the land trust?
Yeah, I put the link to the I put a link to the Disability Commission agenda in the chat and the questions, and I don't know where the complaint is.
I think I'd
We're
like
drifting a
to,
little off topic, but I just wanted
Yep.
to make you aware of it.
I'd like to talk with you offline about that.
Okay.
Not an
You
ADA
got all my
expert,
contact
but I might.
info, so go for it. Yeah.
And I think on behalf of the applicant here, that we will obviously wait to hear what the land
Right.
trust needs from us so that we can, again, in working to do something for the public good here, there is quite a bit of flexibility. We think that this crushed stone option that Kristen has proposed on the plan works well. And in discussing it with Rob, it seems like something that would work well for the land trust, but obviously
Yep.
we understand that there are outside factors in all of this. So we'll hold tight and continue discussions with you about this offline.
Okay. Yeah. And I found out in August that the complaint was put in May. So I haven't been sitting on it, but somebody, Roger Trahan is the chair of the Disabilities Commission. He's my neighbor. He said, hey, you know, there's a complaint. It's like, really? How am I supposed to know? So that's flopping around, but thank you, Stan and Lisa, for looking after that. I really appreciate it. But this is some new news. So sorry to share. I don't want to share bad news with you, but I want you to be aware that you'll want to go into that with eyes open before you agree to anything.
Yeah, I'm
Gotcha. Thank you, Rob.
quite concerned about that. Particularly, you think that, you know, we go through and we make give an approval, a waiver or an approval, and then it turns out it can't be used. Don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Or it'd be more expensive than, you know, we thought we were signing up for something at one cost and it has to be, you know, a much higher cost, is just as you know, a parallel concern, I guess.
yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
you know, I've been not so sure, shall we say, about this waiver anyway, and that just added to my level of concern.
Yeah. If I may, just one thought I have, that if this complaint is not resolved before we be ready to close this public hearing, and if it ends up not being usable as a stone, gravel, pathway, one thought I have that might make sense, and this is something that we can take up at whatever meeting we continue this to, if we do continue this, is that it might be worthwhile to have, if the land trust is not, cannot reasonably acquire the, gravel improvement, that a contribution, by the applicant in kind in terms of estimated cost, or, a in-kind contribution as far as paving a portion of a trail in Grafton. That's something that I think would be beneficial to the town as well, in, if this plan doesn't work out.
And hopefully it doesn't come to paving nature trails, because that seems like the opposite of everything any of us wants to see. But certainly we are.
Exactly. Thank you, Eli.
We are all, here with open minds to exactly what you were discussing, Justin. So we will pay attention to that stuff as we move forward. But hopefully this resolves itself in a common sense manner before then.
Yeah, and just to Kristen's earlier note that if there is, if the current proposal is acceptable for ADA purposes and we don't have to do an approach to it, then that's actually wonderful news. Or if there's a small material change that would be needed, I'm open to hear about it. And these kinds of materials you buy by the ton, so they're not super expensive compared to some other options.
It sort of bothers me when we start talking about accessibility for nature trails. I mean, what we, it's kind of already been said, what we don't want to do here is end up, and this is more something of far more concern to the land trust than it is to this specific project. We don't want to end up paving paradise and putting up a parking lot.
My son sent me that link, Dave. So you're right on the same channel. Thank you.
It's nature, and it's outdoors, and they always say, well, you can make it more accessible, but up to what point, and what ends up being considered reasonable to make something like rough trails truly accessible.
Amen.
I don't know the answer, and I worry that the resolution of this may take some time, or it may turn out to be fairly straightforward. But
yeah. But so just so everybody hears, for the record, I'm open to interesting plans and alternatives that can keep. I don't want your board to be held up by a different board. So
yeah.
I'm interested in what the path would be through to get a real definitive answer. It's you're talking about the Grafton disability.
No, it's the State Architectural Access Board.
Well, but I thought you were talking the complaint went local.
It went to the state and the state sent it to local, but yeah.
Okay, so
but
you need a state resolution that definitely says one way or another about what requirements are. I can't imagine that they don't already have something, because there are trails all over the place, all over the state, all over the country.
Yeah.
So I'd like to do some research on my end into that. Yeah. I have some thoughts on where that could go. I'm by no means an ADA expert, and the only evidence I have is anecdotal. So I don't want to spread misinformation if I'm incorrect, but I do want to do some research into what I believe may be a solution. And so I'll coordinate offline in that regard.
And again, I'm not an ADA expert either. I practice land use law, but if there's anything you want me to take a look at, I'd be happy to volunteer some of my time just to look at that as well. As someone who enjoys outdoor trails, I think this is an interesting, Rob and I were talking about it earlier, and I think we both agree, and probably everyone here agrees, that there's a great place in this region and country for rails to trails style things, but there also needs to be some real actual boots on the dirt outdoor trails as well. So it's an interesting academic exercise if I can help at all.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Just to kind of bring it back to the what this board needs to deal with is, as Bob said, this connects to the waiver request. That is, typically, if we're looking to grant a waiver, provided there's something in it for the public, something in it for the town. And in the discussions we've had in this project, the prior, back in the major residential special permit process, we're really, we sort of zeroed in on this trail improvement as being a notable benefit to the public. And so some sort of resolution of that would seem to be important. And I understand, I think we all understand that right now it's kind of up in the air. With what we've discussed here, I think we, several of us have some ideas that can be worked offline between now and the next time the board meets on this particular subject. So I guess let's just make sure we don't drop it. But really, that's a challenge for Rob and Eli and Stan and Lisa and staff, Chris, is do some more digging, maybe come up with some creative alternatives. I must say, in principle, I like the idea of a boardwalk. I think boardwalks look cool in places like this. But as a practical matter, I think Rob, you've done a good job of pointing out the practicalities of it. While it would look nice, it's just not something that we can afford.
Yeah, well, and so the Natick, the Audubon people in Natick, they put up massive boardwalks, and if you've been on them, they're as nice as you can imagine. But boy, when they got their bill, they're doing a big funding drive, and they have big funding. I mean, people give estates to them left and right, so they've got massive, income, and even they're struggling to afford it.
Yeah, I know that does get done when we go to national parks now, and that sort of thing. You do find boardwalks, but that's the federal government, I think, paying for that, and most of them are new. I don't know how well they hold up. In any case, I'm not sure that we ever got to where everybody agreed, even that this enhancement or this trail was an adequate solution or adequate justification for our criteria that we use for deciding about waivers. So we're going to have more conversation. Okay. Is there anything more tonight on this?
Is there anybody from the public who wishes to weigh in on this?
Say again?
Do we have any public input on it, Bob?
I'm not aware of it, Chris.
Other than the public comments we previously received.
So I'm not seeing any hand raises or Q&A or chat
Okay.
other than what's been addressed.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously, it's going to be a while. We need to, at the very least, get the engineering report. And if there's nothing else otherwise, do you want to request a continuation?
Yeah, I think it would make sense, Mr. Chairman, if we request a continuance to next month's meeting, and then hopefully we'll have heard back from Graves by then.
Are you looking for the meeting that's 2 weeks from tonight or the second meeting?
Without knowing when the peer review request was submitted, I would take some guidance from the board and staff on that.
We could do as early as November 9th. And if the response isn't received, we can continue then to the 23rd.
I think for the sake of flexibility and keeping the ball rolling here, if that's acceptable to the board, I think that would be acceptable to our team as well.
Okay. I know we have some things already on for 9th, but no harm, I guess. Continue if necessary. So we need a request.
I'll move that we accept the applicant's.
I need a request first.
Yes, I would request that our application be continued to the next available hearing of the planning board.
And you'll follow that up with a written.
Yes, I'll get that into Natalia.
Now, Justin.
I jumped the gun. I'm sorry. I move that we accept the applicant's forthcoming written request to continue the public hearing to November 9th at 7:30 p.m.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Dave.
Aye.
Justin.
Aye.
Linda.
Aye.
Raybo.
Aye.
And I vote aye. The motion carries.
Thank you all. Stay safe and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Moving on. We have a new definitive plan and a scenic road permit request, both for 88 Adams Road. Chris, do you know if we have anybody specifically wanting to talk to us tonight about the scenic road permit?
I know James Tatro is here tonight, so I guess I defer to him if he wants to kind of put those together or hear them separately, however his preference on, if he has input on how he'd prefer to present.
Chris, I guess I was just going to sort of go in the order that it was listed in the agenda, because it's the scenic road issue is relatively quicker. I was just going to discuss the issues at the proposed entrance onto Adams Road, and then move on to the rest of the subdivision.
Let's do that. I think we need to read a notice.
Yes, I'm just looking for the scenic road one. 1 second. I'll go to legal notices. Apologies for the delay. Okay, we have it here. There we go. All right. Pursuant to Article 24 of the General Bylaws of the Town of Grafton and Scenic Road Regulations, the Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, October 26, 2020, at 7:30 p.m. to consider the application for a scenic road permit for lowering of traveled way surface grades and removal of 3 trees at 88 Adams Road, shown as Grafton Assessors Map 32, Lot 10. Said property is located in the low-density residential R40 zoning district. The applicant owner is Stephen Benincasa. I apologize. Copies of the application and plan are available for public inspection on the Town of Grafton website at www.grafton-ma.gov on the Planning Department Development Projects webpage. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March stay-at-home advisory, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. Please see www.grafton-ma.gov/planning-board for more information.
Okay. I guess we should hear about the request first. The requester.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I'm James Tatro from Thompson Liston Associates, representing Mr. Benincasa, who's the applicant for the subdivision. And because he's proposing to enter onto and do some work in the right-of-way of Adams Road, we filed a request for a scenic road permit. And in that application, we included some photos. Justin read. We're proposing to take down 3 trees. One is, first of all, the entrance of the subdivision onto Adams Road comes at the parcel with an address of number 88. Immediately to the south of that is a lot owned by the Underwoods, number 86. There is one tree, actually a large oak tree, 24-inch oak tree, in the right-of-way in front of their lot, which would otherwise be a site distance problem. So we're proposing to take that tree out. There's a small, about maybe 2 to 3 inch diameter tree at the edge of the right-of-way and at the edge of the applicant's property bordering Underwood. And on the other side of the applicant's property coming out to Adams Road, bordering the abutter, Hodge, there's a approximately 18-inch oak tree, which will be removed as part of bringing the road out to Adams Road, the new road. In addition to these 3 roads, there's no stone wall removal required for this. If you looked at those pictures that I sent, you see my car parked in there. You could drive your car in there right now. There's an existing stone wall gap right now. We would have to remove these 3 trees. And as part of the preliminary subdivision plan process, we were asked to look at the issue of the site distance of a car coming out on the proposed road that you see on the screen, Libby Lane, looking to the north. We believe that the site distance there was probably adequate, but the board asked us to commit to doing some lowering of the grades. There's a local high point where you see between Mr. Hodge at number 90 and the Andersons at 92, right about on the boundary between them in the road. That is a local high point, and it's somewhat of a limit, or a limiting factor, I guess I should say, on the site distance. And so in the course of the preliminary process, we committed to lowering that about a foot in order to improve site distance, again, for any car coming out and looking north. And that is also on sheet P1 of the subdivision set. You'll see I included that, I believe, in the filing. There's a note that says that the applicant will lower the grade, I think it says 100 to 150 feet north of the proposed intersection in order to 1 foot in order to improve site distance. So the work that we're proposing in Adams Road, Scenic Road, is are these 3 specific trees to cut, a large one directly in front of the Underwoods, a small one kind of at the edge of their property, and an 18-inch tree at the edge of the Hodge property. Those 3 tree removals, and again, lowering the grade of Adams Road, where it's a local high point, again, just about in front of the property line between Hodge and the next lot to the north, Anderson. So that's all we're proposing to do. And again, as I say, we don't have to do anything with any stone walls in this location. And the grades are really not too bad coming off of Adams Road. So we're not dealing with either a immediate significant rise up or down. As I say, when you look at those pictures that I submitted with this, my car is parked in there, and believe me, I'm not too adventurous with where I drive off road. So it couldn't be very tough. So I'll just leave it at that. In regard to the Scenic Road, that's what we propose: 3 trees to be removed, and a lowering of Adams Road, which was again discussed in the course of the preliminary process.
I noticed that there was a comment submitted from the town about the trees and about the lowering of the road. Have you seen that?
I don't think I have, or if I have to confess, if I have, maybe I've just it slipped my mind. But
Yeah,
No,
it was
I
from
guess
Paul Cornoyer from the DPW. That helps jog your memory.
So DPW submitted 2 comment letters, one of them in terms of grading. I would like to follow up with him. It seems his request is also looking for specific plans with elevations. So I'm not sure if he was just looking at the Scenic Road application, or if he reviewed the full definitive subdivision in terms of the information provided in those plans. The other comment that he provided was in terms of the 3 trees, and he provided cost estimates for those. His recommendation was that the contractor chosen to do the tree removal provide tree removal service in that estimated amount for other town trees that are dead or dying.
Yeah, the value of the tree, the one particular tree, is quite substantial. If they do their calculations. So it's a significant amount of money. I don't know whether we're doing justice to the Scenic Roads interest by taking money to cut down more trees. So we ought to, I guess we need a response on the request in any case, but I want to think about that question too. Okay. Anything else on this at this point?
One of my questions, Bob, which might be more for Chris to try to answer for me, is around the process with what Paul from the DPW did mention in regards to doing any grading change to the road and needing a select board approval.
Mhm.
Let me just, I might have skimmed over. Let me reread that comment.
It was the last sentence in Exhibit 2.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that the grading work at Adams Road is not directly under the scenic road permit. The scenic road permit is for stone walls and trees. The grading, however, is most definitely associated with the subdivision development overall. And so that would be, I think that would be properly reviewed under the scope of the definitive plan approval. Having said that, I think the applicant has stated there is no stone wall work proposed here. The proposed work that we're dealing with here is the removal of trees. And ordinarily, we would not want to see a very nice oak tree removed. In this particular case, it's being removed as a matter of public safety, which in the past we've recognized public safety as a reason to remove trees that otherwise should be preserved.
I think we need to have some more input before we close this one on. Don't you think, Chris? We need to do a little coordinating, and
Right.
applicants need to catch up with the comments to see what's being discussed.
Yes, I think the applicant indicated that they haven't really had a chance to review the comments from Paul Carnoia. So absolutely, they should be given time to review and respond to those comments.
Yeah, they need to request doing that though, and we want to see if there's any other input from anyone before we get to that. Is there anything from anyone? Public?
We did receive one part of the record, one public comment, which is included in the meeting materials, but I don't have any kind of Q&A or chat in regards to this.
But remind us what that comment we got was.
None. The only comments I'm seeing under the scenic road permit are the two
Sorry.
from Paul Carnoia and one from the ZBA.
Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. That was for the definitive.
Okay.
Yes, we'll have more public comments on the definitive, I'm sure.
So I just have a question. So these three are being removed for, I see that for safety measures to improve sight distance for the new subdivision. Is that right? And
That is correct. That's correct.
Yes.
Especially one tree, the one that's in front of the abutter Underwood, that is for sight distance for a car leaving the subdivision. The other two trees are just trees at the edge of the right of way that we expect would be either so damaged in the course of because of their position that they couldn't be kept, and so we're just saying that we're going to end up taking down these two other trees that are right at the edge of the right of way.
And I think so. So that subdivision must have been approved earlier. Is that right? Before I joined.
We had a preliminary review process, and we had a review of conventional versus open space, or I should say flexible process. And then as we were getting ready to come back to you, the Conservation Commission suggested that the wetland should be reflagged, and then that was done, which made some changes, mostly relatively minor, but that again sort of set things back time-wise.
Okay.
Yes. So Vikram, the subdivision is the subject of the very next hearing tonight. That's the definitive plan, as it's noted. It's, the board did review the preliminary plan, and
Got it.
we're back with the definitive.
Yeah, the sightlines, and those issues were part of the special permit and preliminary subdivision, which was a bit back. Okay, actually, I guess it's been a while back. He's talking to Westboro, right? It's part of it.
Yes, actually, we've now got all the approvals from Westboro. We have an order of conditions, and we have a definitive subdivision approval. And we just recently got were issued an order of conditions, or there was a vote to issue an order of conditions from your Conservation Commission, from the Grafton Conservation Commission.
Okay. If there isn't anything else for tonight, you want to request to continue the scenic road hearing.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would request that the board please continue the discussion on the scenic road permit application. I guess I would ask at this point to its next meeting. Hopefully we can resolve the procedural issues and things before then.
Right. I'll move that we grant the applicant's forthcoming written request to continue the hearing till November 9th at 7:30 p.m.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? None. Dave,
Aye.
Justin,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Bravo. And I vote aye. The motion carries. We'll see you on this one on the 9th.
Okay.
At 7:30, wasn't it? Which now brings us to the subdivision.
All right, and I have this notice ready. The planning board will hold a public hearing on Monday, October 26, 2020, commencing at 7:30 p.m. to consider the application for a definitive plan approval of a 39-lot residential definitive subdivision, the Ridings, on property located at 88 Adams Road, as shown on Grafton Assessor's Map 32, Lot 10. Said property is located in a low-density residential R40 zone. The applicant owner is Stephen Benincasa. Copies of the application and plan are available for public inspection on the Town of Grafton website, www.grafton-ma.gov, or on the Planning Department Development Projects webpage. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March stay-at-home advisory, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. Please see www.grafton-ma.gov/planning board for more information.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, again, I'm James Tateford from Thompson Liston Associates, again representing Stephen Benincasa, the applicant before you. In this case, the application is for definitive subdivision approval of a flexible plan subdivision on the easterly side of Adams Road. As noted in the previous hearing, we have frontage on Adams Road at number 88. And the proposal is to create a subdivision with a sort of a spine road going from number 88 eastward to Westboro and connecting to the road network. That's the perfect plan. Crossing the town line and connecting to Harvest Way in Westboro. The subdivision plan would have that street, Libby Lane, would have approximately 2,200 feet of road in Grafton before it hits the town line. We would also be creating two small cul-de-sac, Liberty Circle, closer to Adams Road, which is the shorter one on sheet 2 that you see there, and that one is 300 feet long. And also Empire Circle on sheet 6 on that view that you have, which is 750 feet to the cul-de-sac circle. There are a total of proposed 39 lots on this subdivision. And I would just note, looking back to the preliminary process, that we showed the board a conventional plan that actually had more lots than this, which had 43 lots. But the applicant is asking for 39 lots on this subdivision. The parcel total has 69 and change acres in Grafton. As you know, just again, the fact that we're mentioning this connection to Westboro, it also, there was adjacent Westboro land. As a flexible subdivision, we're required to designate at least 40% of the site as open space. We're actually designating 61% of the site as open space. And the open space on this, the Grafton side of the project, adjoins open space on the Westboro side, which also adjoins open space north of the Westboro project. So just put it in a greater context, if you look at the land on the Westboro side, Libby Lane continuing into Westboro, north of that, there are approximately 200 acres of open space on two different parcels in Westboro. And so all told, you're going to have a contiguous network of nearly 300 acres. And there will be entrances to the open space at the end of Libby Lane in Westboro. There will be one right near the town line, but just in Westboro, off the north side of Libby Lane. There will be an entrance off the Empire Circle cul-de-sac, and there will be an entrance off the Liberty Circle cul-de-sac. And there's an existing trail network through those woods, and we're going to use that as much as possible. But we're also going to, with the supervision of Sudbury Valley trustees, who's going to be involved in owning this land on the Grafton side, we're also going to do a little bit of. I had a bit of a session talking to Steve Sloan, asking exactly what they do, and they do a little bit of hand cutting, put up a few signs, but they don't do a whole lot of alteration in the course of establishing a new trail. But they're going to establish new trails to connect the ends of the two cul-de-sac in Grafton, Liberty Circle and Empire Circle, to the existing trail network. And I mentioned to you there's going to be an entrance by the town line, but just into Westboro. There will be 4 parking spaces there. We had a long talk back and forth, I believe, back in the preliminary process with your board and also with the Westboro Planning Board, and no one was too excited about about having parking spaces next to residential lots where people would go off into the woods and leave their car, or they'd be at their car and who knows what. So what we arrived at as the way we would try and handle this is we put 4 parking spaces just as Libby Lane crosses into Westboro, immediately after it has, on the north side. And because that is clearly visible from the intersection of Libby Lane and Harvest Way, it's an extremely conspicuous spot. So it will hopefully deter anybody from having any odd ideas of what they're gonna do with their car in that location. But there will be just pedestrian accesses to the as I say, to the trails off of Liberty Circle and Empire Circle. And again, to circle back, the town's requirement is 40% of a flexible development being designated as open space, and we're actually designating 61. The site is fairly hilly, with the peak of the hill really on the Westboro side. It has a wetland between Liberty Circle and Empire Circle. In that area between it, you can see some dashed lines, and it's a little hard to see on the scale of this particular plan. But that's a wetland area because the hill drains down to that, and a little bit from the Grafton side behind the Adams Road abutters drains down to that wetland. That wetland flows south and actually goes into a huge culvert under the Mass Pike. What we're proposing is that Libby Lane comes in off of Adams Road. At about 500 and change feet in, it crosses the wetland, and then it starts to rise up the hill in the area we see the label sheet 7. It's rising up the hill there to, and it pretty much crests grade when it's getting near the town line. What should I else be mentioning? So many things. I guess I would circle back quickly that we, as I noted, we just had our final hearing with the Conservation Commission, who voted to issue an order of conditions. In this subdivision set, I know this isn't specifically the purview of the Planning Board as much as the Conservation Commission, but in this subdivision set, we have some sheets that we haven't typically had as part of a set of definitive subdivision plans. We've got a couple of sheets labeled tree clearing plans, which prescribe that while tree cutting may be done over most all of the proposed developed area, that initially stumps will only be removed. There will only be clearing and grubbing and removing of topsoil over a much smaller area to limit the exposed area at any one time. And we also included in the subdivision plans some sheets called the interim grading plans, where we show, okay, for the contractor, at the time that he's cutting out Libby Lane, the main road, and he's grading that, what will the grading look like at that point? Because the grading plan set shows everything. But on the interim grading plan, we show, just as the name implies, an interim stage of grading where we show also where temporary settling basins should be, where erosion control barriers will be at that point in time when work has only gone that far. So we actually, with the help of both towns' conservation commissions, quite frankly, we developed what is a pretty involved set of plans. And one reason that we had to develop this set of plans is that there's a lot of earth moving proposed on the overall project, but it is essentially internal. There's a very significant cut or amount of soil to be cut on the Westboro side of the project. And the Grafton side of the project, from that proposed wetland crossing, again, above about the 3 in sheet 3, from that point up to, almost the intersection of Empire Circle with the main road, is a fill area. And essentially the earth moving of cutting material in Westboro balances out the need for material in Grafton. So I know the Westboro Planning Board, put forth very specific conditions that, if a vehicle is coming to work on a lot in Grafton, they don't want, deliveries driving through Westboro. And I'm sure your board will have an interest in making the exact same comments in the other direction, that you don't want somebody who's delivering stone or pipe or something to the Westboro lots driving through Grafton to do so. We understand both towns' interest in not having extraneous traffic through their roads. What was I going to say? Oh, and I just wanted to note we proposed 3 different basins on site. In the area about, again, where that 3 in sheet 3 is, there's a very large infiltration basin because that is an area of terrific soil. There's also a smaller infiltration basin at the corner of Liberty Circle and Libby Lane. And there's just a regular detention basin off north of the end of Empire Circle. So we've had a review now by Jeff Walsh and Graves Engineering. I don't believe there are any comments they believe to be unaddressed in regard to drainage. And this is, again, dealing with the very, very, very large storms that your regulations require to be modeled, which are the 8.79 inches of rain in a 100-year storm, which is monstrous. But so anyways, we proposed 3 basins. We've done nearly all the requisite soil testing for septic systems on this site. There's no sewer here. We've already tested. We probably have to do about 2 lots over again because we moved the cul-de-sac circle on Empire Circle in response to the preliminary review by your board. Initially, we showed that cul-de-sac circle as being that cul-de-sac as being 900 feet long, and your board balked at that length and suggested that we needed to cut that down. And we, in response to that, we shortened that to 750 feet. And so again, so a couple of the 39 lots we have to retest, but we completed soil testing for all the other lots. And one of the waivers you'll see in the waiver list is that you had a requirement of testing every so often in the right of way, and we asked for a waiver from that specific condition because requirement because we've done all this testing throughout the site already. For instance, if you look on where there's the label sheet 7, for instance, all of those lots have their septic systems in front. So if you were looking at lot LL14 across, you have we had two deep observation holes in the front of that lot across the right of way. Yep, right where the cursor is. Across the right of way, we again had 2 deep holes right in front of that, and we just asked for a waiver from that specific requirement in this case, because we've done actually over 100 deep observation holes on the whole project, and for the most part, we just confirmed what the official soil mapping said, which is that this was a fairly typical till hill, which drained down to the wetland, and that there was an area right where the cursor was, just below in the area of the 3 in sheet 3, where the official maps labeled it as literally gravel pits. That's what the map said. Some point in the past it must have been. So actually, I think that might be a good segue to just touch on those that waiver request list. Because in most respects, we are proposing to build to your subdivision regulations, but I just want to go quickly through the waiver list. Number 1, and these are on the title sheet of the subdivision set also. Number 1 is that we're asking for a waiver from the prohibition against any cuts or fills greater than 6 feet, and it's just because of the rapid rise of the grade in the area of, there's the list. Because of the rapid rise of the grade in one area, it's just not possible for us to also to stay to your maximum percentage grade allowed and stick to the contour that closely. The second one is in regard to distance between intersections. And I'm not 100% sure whether it was intended specifically to apply in a case like this, but we just note that Liberty Circle is closer than 600 feet to the T intersection of Libby Lane and Adams Road. Number 3 is a waiver from a requirement for we believe a 26-foot wide pavement on a minor street B category road to a 24-foot wide pavement. Number 4 is in regard to the dead end length. Again, we in the preliminary subdivision process had shown Empire Circle, it's a 900-foot long cul-de-sac, and got a response back from the board that we needed to shorten that some, that the board wouldn't consider that much in excess of the normal 500 feet for a dead end. Next one, number 5, we're asking for a waiver from the requirement to show all the trees of 12-inch diameter or greater on the plans. One thing you will notice on the plan, you will see that on multiple different kinds of the interim grading plans or the grading plans, you see we show the tree line of the property, either existing or proposed. But we're asking for a waiver from the requirement to show every single 12-inch tree. Essentially, almost the entire site is wooded now, with some areas having heavy brush, but essentially all is wooded. And it would be a massive undertaking to locate all of them, and I'm not sure how much it would further knowledge of the site. In number 6, the applicant is asking to do all of the curbing as sloped granite curbing. I believe your subdivision regs had some allowance for, in some areas, doing Cape Cod berm and asking for on curb radii of road intersections to do vertical granite curbing, and the applicant would like to do all of it as slope granite curbing. And that, again, that's not just the roundings on intersection radii, that's everywhere. Next one is what I was mentioning we asked for a waiver from the requirement to do test pits or borings at intervals of at least 200 feet frequency along the rights of way. And again, we asked for that one because we've done so many deep observation holes already. We think we have essentially confirmed the general soil conditions from the official soil maps are essentially correct. Number 8, we asked to have paved asphalt sidewalks rather than concrete sidewalks. And number 9, this was raised by this last one was raised by Jeff Walsh in the course of his penultimate review. Is that there's a requirement in the regulations that granite bounds be set at all bend points of lines of open space parcels, and because some of these are actually kind of out in the woods, we would really ask. Think it would be more reasonable if these points could be iron rod monumented instead of only requiring a large granite bound out there. So those are the waivers that we're requesting. We're not asking for any. The lots would entirely meet your zoning. We're not asking for any waivers of grades of roads. And we have a review letter from Graves Engineering dated, got it right in front of me now, there it is, October 19. And his letter, he identifies actually just a couple typos really, and one driveway. He asks us to move a little further away from a catch basin grate, but most of these have been dealt with, and if we were to continue to a subsequent hearing, I think we could pretty easily handle these in time for him to review and be able to get back to you. I'm sure there's other things I wanted to say, but as I see the notation of phasing plan there, I guess I should focus one more time just quickly on that. Chris, if you could just go to the next page, maybe the next sheet.
Is it this one?
Yeah, the key sheet. Yep. I just want to be able to point out what is in the first phase of construction and what is the second phase. Because we're proposing 2 phases of construction, and the first phase is the in Grafton is the construction of Libby Lane from Adams Road to into Westboro to its proposed intersection with the extension of Harvest Way. That is one phase. We had a bit of discussion back and forth with the Conservation Commission because we showed them that that could open up at the maximum a total of about 8 acres, and they have generally tried to keep exposure at any one time down to 5 acres or less if possible. But they agreed that essentially because that road there's no second way of egress from the property until this connection is made, that you could have that much. But I without patting ourselves on the back too much, I think they liked the interim grading plans, the tree cutting plans that we showed, and that gave a lot of detail to what the contractor should be doing and the timing of him doing it, that I think made them feel comfortable enough to allow that. But just to emphasize, the first phase of construction is Libby Lane from Adams Road out to Westboro to the connection with Harvest Way. And the second phase of construction, which only go after that is done, is Liberty Circle and Empire Circle, the 2 cul-de-sac. I guess I am sure there's other things I wanted to say, but they'll probably come up in questions. So I'll just try and answer any questions that the board has.
Okay. Let's see. I was thinking about that phasing. I'll bet you we talked about this way back at the very beginning at some point. We just try to respect the 500-foot dead end limitation when a developer wants to only go part way. You don't want to create a situation where people are on longer dead end. So want to be sure that I don't remember exactly how. I guess it's a question. I think our rule involves the development of houses.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, one issue in that regard is we committed on this plans that, and this is part of the Conservation Commission review, that there would have to be base course of paved road in front of a lot before house construction would begin. And in this case, to base course of the first phase would be going from Adams Road in Grafton all the way to Westboro, because otherwise you exceed 500 feet of dead end length before you even cross the wetland again above the 3 in sheet 3 on this view, which is only a couple of lots. So there has to be a significant push early in the process to do the road construction to create 2 points of egress, and that's for both towns. Westboro had the same interest. They didn't want to extend Harvest Way any further, as a dead end and not having the other way out. So to satisfy both towns, the applicant is going to have to do the construction to get 2 points of egress before he can go onto the lots, and then that's also true in Westboro, before he can go on to do the lot construction.
Yeah, I think that sounds like what we would typically be looking for. Sounds good. Let's see. You mentioned a bounds waiver. I'm not quite sure. I don't think I've read all the detail of it. There have been some cases where we had bounds extending back into large open space. Did give some waiver from the full bound requirement, and I think we ought to be looking at that. Only I can remember the names of the subdivisions. Chris, this is the one that has a short entrance off of Brigham Hill Road when you get to the bottom of the hill headed north, and then it comes around to most of the subdivision from Rose Lane or the road that connects with Rose Lane. You can try to find it, but that extended back into the forest, the land trust or whatever land heading up onto Brigham Hill. And that'd be a good thing to look at. A vertical curve. I didn't quite hear all of it. I know that we normally require vertical curb sections right at storm drains and that sort of thing. And I think we usually require vertical curb around the radiuses of intersections.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. I had reread the your subdivision regulations, and it said, if I remember correctly from the other day, that it was directing applicants on the rounding from one street's pavement curving into the other to install vertical granite curbing. but it seemed to allow Cape Cod berm on once you get to a tangent section and you're in that next road. And the applicant is saying in both cases he would like to just have consistently throughout the site sloped granite curbing.
Well, if you want to, I'm gonna have to look at that. I have to look at what that actually ends out being, because there were reasons for, I think Public Works back in the day, really thought we should have the vertical curb at the roundings. And I don't know what the storm drain detail would look like with a sloped granite, but I don't think we have that anywhere. So we're gonna have to take a look at that, I suspect. And then the other thing just is, I guess, are there any, some of us remember this from before, and are there any changes, at least any changes you haven't mentioned from what we knew then? Because we went over this.
The biggest changes from the preliminary, the single biggest change is the shortening of Empire Circle, which was shown on the preliminary subdivision plan to be a cul-de-sac of 900 feet length. And the feedback, Mr. Chairman, from you and there's another member who's not on the board anymore. We're in particular interested that we shorten that, and there wasn't a specific direction saying shorten it to 750 feet, but that was sort of one of as part of the discussion, I guess I might say it.
Yeah. I do recall 750 feet being at least put forward as a possibility. I know this was like 3.5 years ago that we issued the decision on the major residential special permit, and I do recall that we by and large weren't comfortable with the 900 feet, but there was some talk about 750 feet, although I don't recall that the board had any kind of a consensus on that. That was just, I do remember that number being suggested, but in the end, our conclusion was that we'll work that out in the definitive, which is where we are now.
Okay.
One of the other changes is that, again, I mentioned part of the time of the process here has been that we went back to the Conservation Commission, and they decided that since the ANORAD was the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation was done back in 2013 or 14, that they wanted to have the wetland flagging redone. And it turns out that it shows a little more wetlands at the crossing. I think before we were altering 900 and change square feet. With the proposed road crossing, now we're altering, I believe it's 17 or 1800 square feet. And we revised pursuant to their wetlands reviewer where we proposed the wetland replication areas. And we made some relatively minor changes to the detention basins, or infiltration basins, excuse me, in response to feedback also from the Conservation Commission. But we showed you back then 39 lots on the preliminary subdivision plan, and there are still 39 lots here. The main road, now called Libby Lane, is in the same location. I just say briefly, I mentioned Libby Lane. We actually had a bit of back and forth with both towns as to what name, because they wanted to make Libby Lane be one street name in both towns. They wanted a name that would be up to snuff in both towns. The assessors in both were consulted with, and it was Libby is the name of a longtime landowner in the area, and that was chosen for the street name. And if you look at the lots on this plan where we simply had them before numbered 1 through 39. You'll see now the lots are numbered. For instance, a lot on Libby Lane is numbered, LL 14. That's actually going to be would be that lot's street number, street address, because because talking with the assessors, they didn't want to have a situation where lot 12 is street number 13 and lot 13 is street, and it just sort of become confusing. So they were consultant, and they actually gave us what would be prospective street numbers, and so that's what you see on the screen.
Are you saying that the Libby Lane name will go all the way through and out in Westboro? Because looking at the plan here on the Westboro side, I'm not sure that that's what it's telling me. I think it's saying Harvest Way.
No, but it's Mr. Chairman, it's Libby. It's a T intersection there. Libby Lane gets into Westboro and then starts up the hill and ends in a cul-de-sac circle in Westboro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And Harvest Way. This was actually at the urging of the Westboro Planning Board. They were some of the residents in Westboro were convinced that this would become a shortcut route for some people, and wanted us to make it a little less attractive in that regard. And so we took the through road, Libby Lane, it's now called, and we made it go up the hill in Westboro so that anybody going through, if they're seeming to use this as a cut through, has to go through an intersection. They can't just drive all the way through without even a pause, coming off of Adams Road and get over to, I guess, Nash Street in Westboro. So that was one change in the process urged on by the folks in Westboro.
I think that's all the things I made notes of. Justin.
So my first kind of question and thought, for the phasing, you said Libby Lane itself is one phase basically, and at least up until the T. Is that saying that you expect to have the street at graded and cleared and basically ready before you begin work on any of the lots along Libby Lane?
That's correct. What we are saying, and the reason why is because in both towns have approximately the same dead end length limit. Westboro's may be the same 500 feet or maybe 600 feet. But if you were to come in from Adams Road on Libby Lane, there are 2 possible lots to build before you hit that dead end length. If you are in Westboro and you extend Harvest Way, you don't get to any lots by the time you've extended 500 feet from. It's hard to see here, but there's an intersection with Appleseed Drive in Westboro. So to achieve a second point of egress and not have more than 500 feet of dead end in both towns, you've got to have the road go through.
Okay.
So, Libby Lane goes to Harvest Way, and then Harvest Way is the rest of it?
Yep, Harvest Way goes off the screen, and it also has a T intersection with Appleseed Drive.
Right, but it was a little, that's where I got a little confused. You're going to build the part of Libby Lane that gets to Harvest Way all the way from Adams Road, and then you're going to build Harvest Way. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
And make it connect.
But to be straightforward with you, some of the Libby Lane construction in Westboro has to happen at the same time because, again, the material balance of the overall project is a big cut of material on proposed Libby Lane in Westboro, moving to fill it on Libby Lane in the area of the wetland crossing to the label of sheet 7 in Grafton.
Yeah, I'm just focused on the two means of egress to base pavement or whatever.
My second point that's very related to what we just talked about, it might be kind of a Chris question, I'm not sure, is in our subdivision rules, there is not a waiver for this, but I don't know if we need one, for 3.3.7.3, which talks about the phasing and explicitly does call out in ours which at no time results in a dead end street more than 500 feet.
Yeah.
During the phasing. So I don't know if we need a waiver for that explicitly.
No, he's going to build the road through, I think, so that it won't be a dead end.
Yeah, I wasn't clear, at least in my own head of understanding the subdivision rules, if that included the road construction itself as part of the road would now be 500 feet, and then some before, but it's still a dead end. That's just what I wasn't sure.
I guess I would have, the way I think I saw that same thing. I think my interpretation was that would say that we could not say that we're going to construct Libby Lane from Adams Road to, again, right where, say, the S in sheet 7 is, and that's phase 1. Because that would be a 1,200 foot long or 1,300, whatever it is, phase of dead end construction. And what I think I read that as is it's prohibiting that. It's saying, no, you can go 500 feet, or you can go all the way through to wherever your second point of egress is, but you can't say we're going to stop at, 1,300 feet.
Yeah, right. That's my understanding as well.
Yeah, I agree with the interpretation. I just wanted to make sure our T's are crossed, so to speak, and asking the question if we needed it.
Well, okay, other people with questions or comments?
Well, I have a question. So
Sure.
this is going back to the dead end piece. So Empire Circle is 750 feet, right? That's the piece. Given that, it's an open question, given that we have stuck with fire and threat and not from a decision-making perspective, at what point of time do we start coaching, guiding the proposals, saying that this is what we are sticking to, rather go through the whole process and then finally when we come to decision making, we say that, okay, now this is beyond our acceptable limits.
I think we identify it through the process here of how people feel about it. There was a lot of discussion about this back 3.5 years, Dave.
Yeah,
Dave remembers the discussion.
The decision was dated April in 2017. So we discussed this.
Yeah, and we didn't get right to it.
Yeah,
it took us a while to get to that.
Yes.
If you go back, you find when it opened. So we had a whole lot of discussion about that. And this is another one of those waiver situations. I was definitely not happy with the 900 or whatever, and I've never been all that happy with the 750. But at least in this case, particularly the large open space benefit here between Grafton and Westboro and the the association that's taking charge of it. That's a pretty big public benefit that we can if it comes to approving this, that would factor into it, I think.
Can I say something? Dave, Bob, and I were there when this first came to us. They brought it partly just inquiring rather than completely just bringing it to us. And they brought a consultant who really gave us a good overview of the land that that's being turned into being conservation type land. And it's pretty impressive. There really is, this is a really fairly clear case of where there's a real benefit. The land is very nice and very impressive.
Yeah, and I think as I recall, just what you said, Linda, kind of reminded me too that in terms of the overall picture of this land and this particular layout of streets and lots, this does quite a good job of respecting the existing environment there. In addition to simply providing open space, it also is much more in harmony with the existing topography and everything of the land compared to the conventional plan or other possible alternatives. And that is one of the, I think it's one of the goals of Flex, is to encourage good design. And in the interest of good design, the board is encouraged to waive such requirements, such as a dead-end length, when it meets the overall goals and objectives of Flex. And so, for a number of reasons, I think we have quite a bit about this project that speaks to a public benefit from a variety of perspectives that would tend to justify a waiver up to, and it quite possibly, it's not hard to justify 750. As Bob noted, we were all kind of uncomfortable with 900, but 750, considering everything that's going on here, it's, I'd say, pretty likely to be looked upon favorably by all of us. Ultimately, it does come to a vote of the board. Do we grant the waiver or not? But at least in light of our past discussions on it and what we're seeing now, it looks to me to be pretty favorable.
I think Westboro also faced that same issue and looked at it the same way, that there was more to be gained than lost.
I would say Linda is correct. We presented to Westboro a plan. We said, look, here's what we want to do, which is the plan that you see before you on the screen. We said, we have to ask you for a waiver from the dead end length to do this. We said, we can create a plan which shows 2 shorter cul-de-sac, creating essentially the same number of lots, but it actually involves quite a bit more earthwork. And it isn't in the developer's interest. It isn't in the Conservation Commission agreed, not in their interest, and the Planning Board agreed, not in their interest either. So yeah, there was the overall consideration of benefits was looked at in Westboro as well.
I also see something else when I look at this plan, the way it is now, and that is one of the concerns was that this would become a thoroughfare cutting through. I don't think so. I think this is going to be it's not going to invite you to try and use it as a cut across. The streets aren't laid out for that. They're too windy and too much a little residential area we're not talking about Westboro Road. And I think there are other ways to get to Hopkinton than trying to go through this kind of stuff.
Another point, actually, that's Linda, I'm glad you raised that, because one of our justifications for asking to do 24 feet of pavement instead of 26 is partly in that regard, which is that when you have a narrower road, it does serve to some extent as traffic calming.
Yes.
And, it may be a small influence, but from 26 to 24 feet, we'll have some narrowing from 26 to 24, we'll have some influence in that direction.
Yes.
Yeah. Just to follow up on that, I read the public comment that was submitted from a Grafton resident proposing or suggesting that that people might think of using this as a shortcut from Adams Road and Grafton over to get to Hopkinton. And I took a look, I looked at the map, and particularly when you look at the street network in Westboro, the Westboro part of this, there's, even without that T at Harvest Way and Libby Lane, even without that T, it's just not conducive to using that as a through. There are so many twists and turns, particularly if you're thinking in terms of getting all the way over to Route 135. Yeah, even using Google Maps to look at the amount of time it would take to drive that. It's several minutes longer to go through all these subdivision roads in Westboro than it would be just to go on up to Old Westboro Road and over into Route 30 and Westboro and down. I mean, it's just, there's no way that anybody would choose this as a shortcut. It's not going to happen.
And I would, and to further that, I would note that in the course of the Westboro review, a couple of the Westboro residents, had expressed that worry, will this become a cut through? And the traffic engineer and the Westboro town planner both immediately disagreed and said they strongly did not believe that it would become such a cut through because, again, just the reason you raised, there's so many turns and intersections and, that people are not going to see it as a desirable thing instead of just sort of, going straight ahead with no turns up Adams Road to Old Westboro Road, taking a right and just rolling along.
And to get
The traffic engineer and the town planner there disagreed that it would ever be seen that way.
Justin?
Sure. I just had a offhand question, but if Linda was going to make a comment along the same thought process, I'll let her go first.
Oh, the other thing is that to go from 140 to Hopkinton, there are several other much better ways to go. You can go, of course, over the hill, Suicide Hill, or you take Mechanic Street, which it takes you behind the Westboro High School and right to 135. There's no reason anyone would cut through this.
Yeah, well, I think we've got that place reasonably well covered.
You think?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have anything more? Do we have any public input?
I did have one more thing, Bob. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
A question for me to James is that bouncing back to the dead end street length, in particular relating to our Empire Circle here, what is the, if you have it, James, available,
Sure.
from Harvest Way to the cul-de-sac on Libby Lane? What is that length that Westboro approved? That at least would play into my.
It's actually more. It was is just over. Was it 1,000 or just over 1,000? I forget. It was longer than Empire Circle, and I don't have it with me, but it was either like 990 something and just hitting 1,000, or is it 1,090? I forget which one it was, but if I say it's 1,000 feet, that's probably fair. It was more than we had proposed even before on Empire Circle in Grafton.
Yep. My reason for asking is, knowing that, Westboro's rules are different than Grafton's rules, and we, follow Grafton's rules, it still plays a hand into, how I might view the development driving through it and looking at it as a Grafton resident, that Empire Circle is this long, but just a few feet down the road, so to speak, is another, extension in the same development that is, as long as, that Libby Circle you just mentioned, about 1,000 feet. That's just a mental way to also think about how this will be in relation to our planning.
I will note the narrowing of the pavement interacts with the sloped granite for me. When we early on in the flex approvals, we did one that was down to the minimal width, and I got a lot of complaint from town leaders about that when they actually went through and found that it was really pretty tight driving through, particularly if people were parking on the street, which they can. The slope curbing, be it berm or granite, I think let you get your car off just the pavement where the vertical curve doesn't. So that's a piece of that equation. Okay, who else? Anybody else? Going once.
I will mention that of the waiver requests the applicant has submitted with the definitive plan, the first 4 were requested as part of the preliminary plan and the major residential special permit. And of those first 4, the first 3 waivers were granted by the board. The 4th waiver was for the dead end street that was denied, as we've established. But the first 3 have been approved once. And unless we have reason to think differently about them, we probably want to follow the guidance that in our decision from 3.5 years ago. And the remainder of the waivers are new, and we'll need to address those.
Okay. Is it safe to assume you want to request a continuation of the hearing?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I guess I didn't know if there was going to be public comment or.
Well, I've been asking for public comment.
Oh.
And I haven't been having much luck.
We had quite a bit at the Conservation Commission, mostly talking about drainage issues. That was the primary concern. That the folks a little bit north of where the road is proposed to come out, there's a wetland which drains a little bit of this property and drains it essentially to Adams Road, and has caused some problems over the years for the folks both on the west side where that wetland is and on the other side of the road. And it was actually a specific point of focus in Jeff Walsh's review, asked us to actually break out another design point and study the flow to that point. That was the biggest point of discussion with the abutters and the neighbors and folks interested in the Concom process.
Yeah, I'll say the drainage onto and around Adams Road has been over the last few years at least, has been a constant mention of town residents. That it's something that I do have concerns with, but I'm much happier letting Conservation Commission sort those details out and deferring to their judgment on this one for that, at least for myself. So, that's why I didn't mention it here tonight, because I know you're talking with them, but.
I think that most of what I've heard about Adams Road drainage, though, is further south, south of the turnpike, down towards what's the name of the intersection? Anyway,
Yes,
heading on down.
Estabrook.
Yeah, down towards Estabrook and on down to Marion. So then up at the place that we're talking about here. So, is there anything that does need a continuation? Chris?
Well, Mr. Chairman, we've got to address a few comments from Jeff Walsh's letter.
Okay.
Of course, this is the engineer's perspective. I say that I think they're relatively minor, but we have a few things to address anyway. So we have to ask you for a continuance.
And I haven't even had a chance to read Jeff Walsh's report yet. I just saw that posted to our webpage for this project. It's not more than an hour or two ago is when I first saw it there. So I haven't had a chance to review that, and I think we probably all want to make sure that we've reviewed all the available information.
It was more than 2 hours because the meeting's been going on more than 2 hours. But it was this afternoon.
I think I actually looked for it during the meeting.
Oh no!
Yeah,
It's there.
yeah, it was there.
I stumbled over it. I don't know, 5 o'clock, 6, whatever. I really would like us to have a better system for that part of this thing. But for now, what would you like to ask for a continuance?
I would like to ask for a continuance to your November 9 meeting. We would try and address, as we stated earlier, the procedural issues with regard to the scenic road, and we would try and get these few items reviewed and back to Jeff for him to be able to say to you that they're okay. And everybody would also be able to take a look at his comments and see if there's anything else.
Okay.
I move that we grant the applicant's forthcoming written request to continue the hearing to November 9th at 7:30 PM.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Dave?
Aye.
Justin?
Aye.
Not
Aye.
who?
Aye.
And I vote aye. The motion carries.
Thank you for your
We'll
time.
see you then. Is there anything else that may lawfully come before us?
So, Mr. Chairman, I did want to mention, I'm realizing it's was not included on the agenda, but I did provide a memo for 114 Miriam. So I apologize for missing that on the agenda. This was in regards to a minor modification for essentially a word change in a decision looking at commencement of construction versus completion of construction. I defer to the board if we can hear the minor mod without it being on the agenda. I would request in either case that the board discuss the potential of waiving fees in terms of the full modification request.
Yeah.
I'm happy to.
I think that the new open meeting law has some flexibility in it. I think the last I remember, which is a while ago, I think that the town's rules may still apply, which allowed a board to vote to take up something as an emergency item. And I think maybe if we were to agree to take this up with that, I think it'd be sufficient. Someone want to move that we take it up
I move that we take this up as an emergency item
for the convenience of,
for the convenience of the town.
that's one of the reasons listed.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Dave,
Aye.
Justin,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Raybo,
Aye.
and I say aye. Motion carries. Go for it.
So I believe the applicant, Alyssa Bloom, is here, but as I was mentioning, so this is a request. The decision as it was written notes that the completion of the roadway is to be done as a matter of the condition. The modification request was actually for commencement. And that's clearly stated in the application and actually the beginning of the decision, that the roadway was to be commenced. And then, so that wording did at some point change, whether it was a copy paste error or a holdover from something else. And so the request was to change that wording either as a minor modification. If the board feels that a full modification is requested, they have applied for the November 9th meeting for a full modification. There is a pending home sale that is essentially contingent on this being resolved. And so obviously the board should do what they feel is appropriate, but that was my recommendation to the applicant in order to give them the quickest timeline. So if the board does feel that the minor modification request is applicable here and feels favorably towards granting that, I did request that they also include a motion to waive the application and legal advertising fees for that other hearing, in order to, since they would then be withdrawing that application.
Does anyone remember any reason that we might have done that? We have at least a couple of you were here. I can't remember. I think it's an oversight.
I do too. And I think, it's just something we need to correct rather than anything else. I think it's a correction more than it is a modification. And I'm willing to move that we amend the, what do we do? Amend the,
Chris, what does she need to move?
So it's a minor modification request, which is essentially saying that the change is insubstantial to and that the change is in line with the board's original intent of the decision.
So you're going to find that it's a minor modification and you're going to grant the request.
yes. Okay, so
Is that your motion?
that's my motion. Yes.
Do you want to move that we waive the fees? Is on the same,
Yes. And that we waive the
Oh,
fee.
yes.
And the not just the fee, the advertising.
Yeah, well, just, anyone want to second that? motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Dave,
Aye.
Justin, Linda,
Aye.
Aye.
Prabhu, and I vote aye. The motion carries.
We said for the Zoom meeting.
Aye.
What?
Yeah.
I see Natalia's hand up.
What exactly did you motion?
So the motion was to grant the minor modification for 114 Miriam,
Right, for what?
the special permit. So that was the memorandum that I can pull up let me just grab my email.
But you can.
What is the minor modification? Because we advertised for the 9th, we sent out legal notices to change the deadline for completion to deadline to commence construction. Is that what we're doing? The hearing that I published for the 9th?
Correct, yeah.
So then all the legal ads went out for the 9th.
So we did incur that expense.
That was the whole, yeah.
We're not going to waive what we spent.
Well, the legal ads spent, and he had talked about that was.
Right, so the waiver of fees would then be the $100 application fee, and I believe the legal advertising is $168. So we did advertise for the 9th. Obviously, that would be withdrawn given the board's motion, but they may wish to revise the motion to not waive the legal advertising fee. So we would retain that amount, the $168, to cover the costs of advertising.
I think we just voted, didn't we?
We did, yes.
So I need a motion to reconsider.
I move to reconsider the motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded to reconsider that most recent vote. Discussion? Hearing none. Dave,
Aye.
Justin,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Prabhu,
Aye.
I vote aye. We're reconsidering now. Do I understand that the motion is the same as it was before, except not speaking to the advertising fees?
Yep, so the motion I would recommend respectfully would be to approve the minor modification and to approve the waiver for the $100 application fee and deny the waiver for the $168 legal advertising fee.
Ask one question?
Mhm.
So what do we do with the public hearing that's scheduled?
The applicant would submit a request to
Oh.
withdraw without prejudice. And since it's before the hearing's opened, the board will not need to meet on that.
I can see you, Bob, but can't hear you right now. And I understand why.
Hear me now.
Yes.
Okay,
I don't know how that's happening, but okay. My computer over here does this. I don't know why. So I'm over here on this computer. So it was moved and seconded. Was it?
I recommended the motion. So someone just needs to make that motion and then second.
I'll make that motion using that.
Fine.
same-
I'll
that
second
language.
it.
Now
And
we've got.
did I hear the second?
Dave.
Yeah.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Dave,
Aye.
Dustin,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Bravo.
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion carries. Now, is there anything else that may legally come before us? If not,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second,
it's not debatable. All in favor? No.
not no.
Dave,
Aye.
Dustin,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Brabo,
Aye.
and I vote aye. We'll see you again in 2
2
weeks.
weeks.
2 weeks.